4 minutes. That's all it took to destroy a billion-dollar empire. When Eva Kingsley dared a nobody mechanic to fix her father's sabotaged hypercar for her hand in marriage, 300 cameras started rolling. But Darius Cole wasn't there by accident. The sabotage wasn't random. And the revenge he'd been planning for 15 years was about to begin with a cocktail straw and a cigar lighter. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another incredible story that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Are you Team Justice or Team Revenge? And if you haven't subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button because stories like this one will change how you see the world forever. Marry you? Over a greasy engine. Her voice dripped venom as she stepped closer to the black man kneeling beside her father's smoking hypercar. You're not even fit to touch my shoes. The Kingsley Motors birthday gala was supposed to be Victor Kingsley's crowning moment. 50 million in new contracts, board members from 3 continents, and his daughter Eva playing the perfect heiress for the cameras. Instead, smoke billowed from the hood of his prized hypercar while 300 of the automotive world's elite watched in horror. Darius Cole had been cleaning champagne glasses in the catering area when the first wisps of smoke appeared. 26 years old, broad shoulders filling out a simple black uniform, he'd learned long ago to make himself invisible at events like these. Rich people noticed him only when they needed something fixed or someone to blame. But engines spoke to him in a language more honest than any human ever had. Sir, I think your car. Darius had started toward Victor Kingsley, but Eva stepped between them like a designer-clad wall. Excuse me. Her green eyes flashed dangerously. Staff aren't supposed to. The hypercar's engine bay erupted in orange flames. Panic rippled through the crowd. Victor's face went ash-white as he calculated the cost, not just of the car, but of the humiliation. Board members were already pulling out phones, filming the disaster. Tomorrow's headlines would write themselves. The fire suppression system, someone shouted. Where's that? It won't work. Darius's voice cut through the chaos, calm as steel. That's not an engine fire. That's an electrical cascade failure in the ECU. Spray water on that and you'll fry every component. Victor whirled around. Who the hell are you? Someone who can fix it. Darius stepped forward, his hands already reaching for the hood release. But I'll need to shut down the fuel lines first, reroute the... Fix it. Eva's laugh was sharp enough to cut diamonds. She gestured to the cameras now focused on them, influencers and journalists smelling blood in the water. You think you can just waltz over here and play hero? Darius met her gaze steadily. I think your father's about to lose a $50 million deal if that car doesn't start in the next 10 minutes. The crowd had formed a perfect circle around them now, phones raised like weapons. Eva felt the familiar rush of having an audience, the intoxicating power of being the center of attention. This nobody in his cheap uniform had just given her the perfect opportunity to remind everyone exactly who was in charge. You know what? She raised her voice, ensuring every camera caught her words. I'll make you a deal. Her hand found her father's arm, squeezing just hard enough to keep him quiet. This was her moment, her stage. Fix this engine, she announced, her voice carrying across the courtyard, and I'll marry you. The crowd exploded. Gasps, laughter, the frantic clicking of camera shutters. Someone shouted, Are you serious? Another voice called out, Get this on TikTok. Eva basked in the chaos, her smile widening as she watched the nobody mechanic's face. She expected him to stammer, to back down, to realize he was drowning in waters far too deep for. You just made a contract, Darius said quietly, his voice somehow carrying despite the noise, with a camera for a witness. The laughter died. Eva's smile faltered as something cold and calculating flickered in the mechanic's dark eyes. Around them, the crowd sensed a shift, like animals before a storm. Darius rolled up his sleeves with deliberate precision. I'll need a silver cocktail straw, a cigar lighter, and exactly 4 minutes of silence. He moved to the engine bay with the confidence of a surgeon approaching an operating table. His hands, steady as mountains, began to trace the burned wiring with the reverence of someone reading scripture. The ECU's been compromised, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. But not by accident. His fingers found a sensor that had been deliberately loosened, a fuel line with a microscopic puncture that would have been invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. Someone had sabotaged this car with surgical precision, timing it perfectly for maximum humiliation. But they hadn't counted on Darius Cole. He grabbed a silver cocktail straw from a passing waiter's tray, fashioning it into a temporary fuel line bypass. The cigar lighter became a soldering iron in his steady hands. Around him, 300 people held their breath as he performed mechanical surgery under the courtyard lights. Eva watched, her confidence bleeding away with each precise movement of his hands. This wasn't some nobody playing pretend. This was a master craftsman who understood engines the way poets understood words. "There," Darius whispered, connecting the final wire. He looked up at Eva, his eyes holding something that made her stomach drop. "Start her up." Victor's hand trembled as he pressed the ignition. The hypercar roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder, its engine purring with perfect mechanical harmony. The crowd erupted in applause and shocked exclamations, but Darius never took his eyes off Eva. Her face had gone paper white, her green eyes wide with something that might have been fear. Around them, phones captured every second as the impossible became reality. The nobody mechanic had done the impossible, fixing a sabotaged engine with cocktail straws and sheer genius. "Well," Darius said softly, wiping his hands on a rag as he stood to his full height. The crowd pressed closer, sensing the moment that would define everything that came next. "I believe you have a wedding to plan." Eva opened her mouth to speak, to laugh it off, to reclaim control of her spinning world. But for the first time in her privileged life, Eva Kingsley had absolutely nothing to say. What happens when the princess realizes she's just made a deal with the devil himself? And why do I have the feeling that engine wasn't sabotaged by accident? The silence stretched like a taut wire until someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit, she actually has to marry him." Eva's world tilted on its axis. 24 years of privilege, of always having the last word, of being the untouchable princess of an automotive empire, all of it crumbling because of one moment of arrogant stupidity. Darius Cole stood before her, oil-stained but unbowed, and for the first time in her life, Eva Kingsley felt small. "Eva!" Her father's voice cut through her panic, low and dangerous. "My office. Now." The crowd began to disperse, phones still recording, voices buzzing with excitement about the viral moment they'd just witnessed. Eva caught fragments as people passed. "Did you see his hands? Incredible technique. That girl just got schooled." But Darius hadn't moved. He stood perfectly still, watching her with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her designer facade to something raw and terrified underneath. "I'll be in touch," he said quietly, "just for her. A deal's a deal." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Eva standing beside the purring hypercar like a woman watching her own execution. 20 minutes later, Eva faced her father across his mahogany desk while her fiancé Adrian Voss paced the length of the office like a caged predator. Adrian was everything her father had chosen for her. Harvard MBA, sharp jaw, sharper suit, and the kind of calculated charm that made board members feel like they were his best friends while he quietly picked their pockets. "Explain to me," Victor Kingsley said, his voice deadly calm, "how my daughter just promised to marry a mechanic on live television." "It was a joke, Daddy." Eva's voice sounded thin even to her own ears. "Everyone knows I wasn't serious. Tell that to the 10 million people who've already watched the clip." Adrian's phone screen glowed as he scrolled through social media. "It's trending worldwide. #engine and engagement. #mechanic princess. Jesus Christ, Eva, what were you thinking? What had she been thinking?" That was the problem. She hadn't been thinking at all. She'd been performing, playing to the cameras like she always did, drunk on attention and the certainty that she was untouchable. "Who is he?" Victor demanded. "This Darius Cole?" Adrian's fingers flew across his phone. "Independent mechanic, owns a small garage in the warehouse district. No family on record except a foster mother named Tola Washington. Clean background check, no criminal history, but..." "But what?" Adrian's face went pale. "He's brilliant. Engineering degree from MIT, full scholarship. Graduated summa cum laude, had job offers from Tesla, McLaren, Ferrari. Turned them all down to work in a garage that barely breaks even. Victor leaned back in his chair, processing this information. Why would someone with those credentials choose poverty? I don't know, Adrian admitted. But his garage specializes in one thing: restoring classic engines that everyone else says are unfixable. He's got a reputation in certain circles. They call him the engine whisperer. Eva felt something cold settle in her stomach. The way Darius had moved around that engine, the confidence in his hands, the surgical precision of his repairs. This wasn't some lucky nobody. This was someone who understood machines better than she understood herself. The media's eating this up, Adrian continued, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. They're painting it as a modern Cinderella story, except the princess is the villain and the peasant is the hero. Victor stood and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Kingsley Motors owned half the skyline visible from this office, and his daughter had just handed a stranger the power to bring it all crashing down. There has to be a way out, Eva said desperately. A loophole, something. You made the contract in public, Victor said without turning around. With witnesses. If we try to back out now, we look like liars and cowards. The board is already asking questions about company stability. Adrian stopped pacing. What if we dig into his background? Find something to discredit him? With what? Victor turned back to face them. You just told me he's clean as snow and brilliant as hell. If anything, that makes this worse. My daughter just publicly humiliated a man who could probably design a better car than anything we've produced in the last 5 years. Eva's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, social media mentions piling up faster than she could process. She'd gone viral before, usually for fashion choices or charity galas, but this felt different. Dangerous. One comment on the video made her blood freeze. She mocked him because he's black. This isn't just about class, it's about race. Hope he takes everything she's got. They're not just laughing at me, she whispered. They hate me. Adrian moved behind her chair, his hands finding her shoulders. To anyone watching, it would look like comfort. Eva felt the subtle pressure of his fingers, the way he positioned himself to control her field of vision. This can still work in our favor, he murmured. Let the story play out for a few days. Public interest will peak, then fade. We'll arrange a meeting with this mechanic, pay him off quietly, and spin it as a charitable gesture. By next month, it'll be forgotten. But Eva wasn't listening to Adrian's damage control. She was remembering the look in Darius Cole's eyes when he'd said, "A deal's a deal." There had been something there, not just anger at her humiliation, but recognition. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for exactly this moment. There's something else, she said slowly. When he looked at the engine, he said it wasn't an accident. He said someone sabotaged it. Victor's head snapped toward her. What exactly did he say? That the ECU had been compromised. That someone had deliberately loosened a sensor and punctured a fuel line. Like they knew exactly how to make it fail at exactly the right moment. The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 40 floors below. Adrian's hands stilled on her shoulders. That's impossible. The car was in our secure garage until this afternoon. Who had access? Victor's voice was sharp now, CEO mode fully engaged. Just our people. Security, mechanics, myself. Adrian trailed off, something flickering across his face too quickly for Eva to catch. Victor studied his future son-in-law for a long moment. Get me a full security report on everyone who went near that car in the last week. If someone sabotaged us from the inside, I want to know who and why. As Adrian left to make the calls, Eva found herself alone with her father for the first time since the disaster. In the sudden quiet, she could hear her own heartbeat, fast and shallow with fear she didn't want to acknowledge. "Daddy," she said quietly, "what if we can't fix this?" Victor looked at his daughter, his beautiful, spoiled, brilliant daughter who'd never faced real consequences for anything in her life, and felt something twist in his chest. "Then you'll learn what the rest of the world already knows," he said softly. "That every word has a price, and some debts can only be paid in full." What Eva doesn't know is that Darius Cole has been waiting for this moment longer than she could ever imagine. And the sabotage? That's just the beginning of a game she doesn't even know she's playing. 3 days after the gala, Eva's world had become a digital hellscape. The video had exploded beyond viral, 30 million views and climbing, with comment sections that read like a war zone. #KingsleyShamed was trending across every platform, spawning reaction videos, think pieces, and memes that cut deeper than any blade. But it was the quiet knock on her penthouse door at 7 a.m. that made her blood run cold. Darius Cole stood in her private elevator lobby, wearing the same simple black clothes but somehow commanding the space like he owned it. Behind him, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Kingsley," Darius said, his voice carrying that same dangerous calm from the gala. "I believe we have business to discuss." Eva pulled her silk robe tighter, acutely aware that she looked like hell. No makeup, hair a mess, dark circles under her eyes from 3 sleepless nights. "How did you get up here? This floor requires special access?" The older woman smiled, pulling out a tablet. "I'm Tola Washington, licensed wedding planner. Your doorman was very helpful once I explained we were here about your engagement." The word engagement hit Eva like a physical blow. This isn't a contract witnessed by 300 people and 10 million online viewers? Darius stepped forward, and Eva caught a hint of expensive cologne mixed with motor oil. "I've consulted with several lawyers. They all agree you made a legally binding promise in exchange for services rendered." Eva's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Adrian. She ignored it, her full attention locked on the man who'd somehow turned her life upside down with a cocktail straw and a cigar lighter. "What do you want?" she asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. "Money. I can write you a check right now and we can forget this ever happened." Tola Washington laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Child, you think this is about money? Isn't it always?" Eva shot back, then immediately regretted the words when she saw something flicker in Darius's eyes. Something that looked almost like disappointment. "You still don't get it," he said quietly. "This was never about your money." He moved to her floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city with the same intensity he'd shown studying the engine. "You made me a public promise, Eva Kingsley. In front of cameras, with the whole world watching. You turned my life into entertainment for your amusement." "I didn't mean. You meant every word." His voice cut through her excuse like a blade. "You meant to humiliate me. To remind everyone watching that people like me exist to serve people like you. You meant to put me in my place." Eva opened her mouth to deny it, but the words stuck in her throat. Because he was right. In that moment at the gala, drunk on attention and privilege, she had meant to crush him just to prove she could. "The question is," Darius continued, turning back to face her, "what happens when the world sees what you're really made of?" He pulled out his phone, showing her a video that made her knees go weak. It was her, from yesterday, screaming at a barista who'd gotten her coffee order wrong. Someone had filmed her meltdown and posted it with the caption, "The same princess who mocked the mechanic losing her mind over foam art." 20 million views, Darius said softly. "The internet is very interested in your character right now." Tola moved to Eva's kitchen, making herself at home with the easy confidence of someone who'd raised a dozen foster children. "Would you like some coffee, dear? You look like you need it." "I don't understand," Eva whispered, her world spinning. "What do you want from me?" Darius sat down across from her, his presence somehow making her massive penthouse feel cramped. "I want exactly what you promised. A wedding. Publicly, with all the fanfare you're famous for. Give the people the show they're expecting." "That's insane." "I won't. You will." His voice never rose above conversational level, but something in his tone made her blood freeze. "Because the alternative is watching your family's empire burn to the ground." He slid a tablet across the coffee table. On the screen was a detailed engineering analysis of the hypercar from the gala, highlighting every component that had been sabotaged. That wasn't random vandalism, Darius explained as Eva read. Someone with intimate knowledge of your father's prototype engines orchestrated that failure. They knew exactly which sensors to tamper with, precisely how to create a cascade failure that would look like a manufacturing defect. Eva's hands trembled as she scrolled through the technical breakdown. How could you possibly know all this? Because, Darius said, his eyes holding hers, I designed that engine. The tablet slipped from Eva's nerveless fingers. Impossible, she breathed. That engine is proprietary Kingsley technology. My father developed it himself. Tola returned with coffee, her face sad but unsurprised. Show her the rest, baby. Darius produced a folder thick with patents, design documents, and photographs. Eva's hands shook as she opened it, revealing blueprints dated 15 years ago. Blueprints bearing the signature of someone named D. Washington. Washington, she whispered. But your name is Cole. My foster name, Darius explained. I was 16 when I designed that engine, working in a small shop owned by a man named James Washington. He was going to help me patent it, get it to market properly. Instead, your father's company made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Eva stared at the documents, her world reshaping itself around this impossible truth. You're saying my father stole your design? I'm saying your father bought a failing shop for pennies on the dollar, along with all its assets, Darius corrected. Including a prototype engine designed by a foster kid who didn't know enough about intellectual property law to protect himself. The coffee cup fell from Eva's hands, shattering against the marble floor. The sound seemed to echo forever in the sudden silence. James died 6 months later, Tola said quietly. Heart attack, the doctors said. But Darius and I knew better. That man died of a broken heart, watching his life's work drive around in cars he could never afford. Eva looked up at Darius, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not a mechanic who'd gotten lucky. Not some nobody playing above his station. But a man who'd been systematically robbed of his future by her family, who'd spent 15 years planning this exact moment. The sabotage, she said numbly. You knew exactly how to fix it because I built it. Darius stood, moving to the windows again. And because I know who broke it. He turned back to face her, and Eva saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. This wasn't just about humiliation or revenge. This was about justice, served ice cold after 15 years of waiting. Your fiancé Adrian is very clever, Darius said conversationally. Very good at making problems disappear, at making sure the right people get the right information at the right time. He's also excellent at corporate sabotage. Eva's phone rang again. Adrian's contact photo filled the screen. His perfect smile, his perfect hair, his perfect life that was suddenly feeling like a perfect lie. Answer it, Darius suggested. Ask him about his meeting with the Hartwell Group last week. Ask him about the hostile takeover proposal they've been shopping around. Ask him why he needed your family's stock to crash before he could make his move. With trembling fingers, Eva accepted the call. Eva, thank God. Adrian's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Where are you? The board is asking questions, the press won't leave me alone, and that mechanic. Adrian, Eva interrupted, her voice strangely calm. Did you sabotage my father's car? The silence on the other end of the line lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. What? Baby, that's crazy talk. Why would I? Eva hung up. She looked at Darius, who was watching her with something that might have been sympathy. How long have you known? About Adrian's plans? 6 months. About the sabotage specifically? Since the moment I touched that engine. He moved closer, and Eva caught that scent again. Cologne and motor oil and something deeper, something that spoke of midnight hours spent planning the perfect revenge. So what happens now? She asked, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. Darius smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. Now, princess, you're going to help me take back everything your family stole. Starting with a very public wedding that's going to give Adrian Voss exactly what he deserves. Eva stared at him, this stranger who knew her family's secrets better than she did, who'd turned her moment of cruelty into the first move in a chess game she was only beginning to understand. "And if I refuse? Then you'll watch from the sidelines while I destroy everything you've ever cared about." His voice was soft as silk and twice as dangerous. "But if you help me, well, you might just discover who you really are underneath all that designer armor." Eva thought she was the hunter, but she's been the prey all along. And the real game, it's just getting started. The Kingsley Motors boardroom had never felt like a tomb before, but as Eva sat across from her father and Adrian 3 hours later, the mahogany walls seemed to press in like a coffin. "He's lying," Adrian said for the third time, his usually perfect composure cracking around the edges. "This is classic extortion, Victor. We call security, have him arrested, and this whole nightmare goes away." But Eva couldn't stop staring at the engineering documents spread across the conference table. 15 years of lies, laid out in black and white. Patent applications that had been mysteriously withdrawn. A small shop's bankruptcy that had been expedited through channels that shouldn't have existed. A teenage genius whose future had been stolen with surgical precision. "The engine specs match," Victor said quietly, his face gray as ash. "Every component, every innovation we've claimed as proprietary technology. If this gets out..." "It won't." Adrian's voice carried that familiar confidence that had once made Eva feel safe. Now it made her skin crawl. "We bury the documents, discredit the source, and move on. I know people who can make this disappear." Eva looked up sharply. "What kind of people?" Adrian's smile was smooth as glass. "The kind who understand that sometimes the truth is less important than stability." The same smile he'd worn when suggesting she make that joke about the mechanic. The same smile he'd worn when whispering in her ear at the gala, feeding her the exact words that would create the perfect viral moment. Eva's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email. D." She opened her laptop, ignoring Adrian's sharp look, and found a video file that made her heart stop. Security footage from the Kingsley Motors garage, time-stamped 3 hours before the gala. The image was grainy but clear enough to show Adrian's sleek BMW pulling up to the hypercar bay. "Eva," Adrian's voice carried a warning note. "Whatever he's sent you." She clicked play. On screen, Adrian emerged from his car wearing latex gloves and carrying a small toolkit. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where the cameras were positioned, staying just outside their normal range. But this angle, from a maintenance camera Adrian clearly hadn't known about, caught everything. His hands, steady as a surgeon's, loosening the fuel sensor. A micro-drill creating the precise puncture in the fuel line. The ECU panel being carefully accessed and reprogrammed. Eva's father moved behind her to watch the screen. His face went from gray to white to a dangerous shade of red. "Explain this." Victor's voice was deadly quiet. Adrian straightened his tie, a nervous gesture Eva had never seen before. "It's obviously been doctored. Deep fake technology, video manipulation." "The timestamp," Eva whispered. "It shows you there at 3 p.m. But you told me you were in meetings with the Hartwell Group all afternoon." Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, anger, calculation. "I was. This is obviously." "The Hartwell Group confirms no meeting took place," Victor interrupted, consulting his phone. "I just called them." The silence stretched like a taut wire until Adrian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes, I sabotaged the car. Yes, I fed Eva that line about marrying the mechanic. And yes, I've been working with Hartwell to position ourselves for a hostile takeover." Eva felt the world tilt sideways. "Why?" "Because your father is running this company into the ground with his outdated vision and his refusal to embrace automation. Because you're a spoiled princess who thinks the world owes her everything. And because I'm tired of pretending either of you has what it takes to compete in the real market." Adrian stood, straightening his jacket like he was preparing for a board presentation. "Hartwell offered me the CEO position in the new structure. Real leadership, instead of this dynasty nonsense that's already 15 years behind the competition." Victor's hands clenched into fists. "You son of a bitch." I brought you into this family, gave you everything. You gave me a leash disguised as an opportunity, Adrian snapped. A pretty fiancé and a meaningless VP title while you kept all the real power. Did you really think I'd spend my life playing second fiddle to a man who steals teenage kids' inventions? The accusation hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Eva's phone buzzed again. Another message from Darius. One more surprise. Check the conference room camera. Her blood ran cold. She looked up at the small security camera in the corner of the room, its red light blinking steadily. He's watching, she breathed. Adrian followed her gaze and his face went pale. That's impossible. Our security system is designed by the same people who installed your car's ECU? Darius's voice came through the conference room speakers with crystal clarity. Amazing how easy it is to access systems when you understand the underlying architecture. Victor shot to his feet. Where are you? Close enough to hear every word. Hello. Adrian. Enjoying your confession. Adrian dove for the camera, but Eva caught his arm. For the first time in their 3-year relationship, she saw him clearly. Not the charming prince her father had chosen, but a predator who'd been playing a long game while she served as the perfect, oblivious pawn. Let me go, Adrian snarled, and Eva realized she'd never seen his mask slip before. Never seen the cold calculation that lived behind his perfect smile. Eva, Darius's voice was gentler now. I need you to listen very carefully. In about 30 seconds, federal agents are going to walk through that door. Adrian's communications with Hartwell included some very interesting details about stock manipulation and insider trading. What? Adrian spun toward the camera. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Every email, every phone call, every bank transfer. You see, when you've spent 15 years studying your enemy, you learn to be very thorough. The conference room doors burst open. Federal agents in bulletproof vests flooded in, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands that turned the mahogany sanctuary into a war zone. Adrian Voss, you're under arrest for securities fraud, insider trading, and conspiracy to commit corporate sabotage. Eva watched in stunned silence as they cuffed the man she'd been planning to marry. The man who'd whispered sweet lies in her ear while orchestrating her family's destruction. The man who'd turned her into a viral villain just to advance his own agenda. Eva, Adrian called as they dragged him toward the door. This isn't over. You think that mechanic is your friend? He's been planning this for 15 years. You're just another pawn in his game. The doors slammed shut, leaving Eva alone with her father and the echo of Adrian's words. Ms. Kingsley. A new voice made her turn. A woman in an FBI windbreaker stood in the doorway, holding a tablet. We'll need to interview you about your relationship with Mr. Voss. And we'd like to speak with Mr. Cole about his cooperation in this investigation. Cooperation. Eva's voice sounded foreign to her own ears. Mr. Cole contacted us 6 months ago with evidence of the fraud. He's been working with our white-collar crime unit ever since, helping us build the case. The agent left, and Eva found herself staring at the conference room camera, knowing Darius was still watching. Why? She asked the empty air. Why help me when I humiliated you? His voice came through the speakers one last time, soft enough that only she could hear. Because sometimes the person who hurts you isn't your real enemy. Sometimes they're just another victim who doesn't know it yet. The camera's red light went dark. Eva slumped in her chair, surrounded by the wreckage of everything she'd thought she knew. Her fiancé was a criminal. Her father's empire was built on stolen dreams. And the man she'd mocked 3 days ago had just saved her family from destruction while she sat there like a useless ornament. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from Darius. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Washington's Garage, 1247 Industrial Way. Time to learn who you really are underneath all that designer armor. Eva stared at the address, her hands shaking. 3 days ago, she'd been untouchable. Now she was falling through space with no idea where she'd land. But for the first time in her life, that didn't terrify her. It excited her. Just when Eva thought she knew who the real villain was, everything flipped again. But the biggest revelation? She's about to discover she's stronger than she ever imagined. 1247 Industrial Way looked like the kind of place Eva Kingsley's GPS would apologize for finding. Cracked asphalt, rusted chain link, and warehouses that had seen better decades. Her Maserati felt as out of place as a diamond in a toolbox. Washington's garage sat at the end of a dead-end street, its hand-painted sign faded but proud. Through the open bay doors, Eva could see Darius bent over the engine of a vintage Mustang, his movements precise and reverent as a priest performing communion. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, gathering courage she didn't know she possessed. When she finally walked through those bay doors, Darius didn't look up from his work. Punctuality isn't your strong suit. I was having second thoughts. And Eva looked around the garage, at the walls covered with photos of restored cars, at the corner where an old man's workbench sat like a shrine, at the woman in the office whose silver hair caught the afternoon light like a crown. I'm here. Darius straightened, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen 1,000 oil changes. Come on. There's something you need to see. He led her to the back of the garage, to a door marked Private, that opened onto a workshop that took Eva's breath away. Computer screens lined the walls, displaying 3D engine models that rotated like mechanical galaxies. Prototypes in various stages of completion filled workbenches with the organized chaos of pure genius. And in the center of it all, covered by a pristine white sheet, sat something that made the air itself feel electric. 15 years ago, Darius said, moving to the covered object, I thought I was going to change the world. He pulled away the sheet. Eva gasped. Beneath was an engine unlike anything she'd ever seen. Sleek lines flowing into impossible curves, components that seemed to defy physics, materials that caught the light like captured starfire. It was art and science and poetry made manifest in metal and carbon fiber. The Phoenix Drive, Darius said softly. Hybrid technology that makes Tesla look like a horse and buggy. Zero emissions, infinite range, performance that would make a Formula One car weep with envy. Eva moved closer, drawn by an irresistible force. This is what my father stole? The crude prototype, yes. But this, he gestured to the masterpiece before them. This is what it was always meant to become. She reached out, then stopped herself. May I? Darius nodded, and Eva's fingers found the engine's surface. It was warm to the touch, humming with potential energy that seemed almost alive. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's everything, Darius corrected. Every night for 15 years, working by lamplight after my day job. Every dollar I could scrape together poured into materials. Every dream James Washington never got to see. Eva looked up at him, seeing pain flicker across his features like lightning. That's why you really came to the gala. Not for revenge. For this. Your father's birthday party was supposed to be the launch of his new hypercar line. Built on my stolen designs. Marketed as his innovation. I couldn't let that stand. He moved to a computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The screens around them came alive with data. Performance metrics, environmental impact projections, market analysis that made Eva's business degree feel like kindergarten math. This engine doesn't just change the automotive industry, Darius explained. It obsoletes it. Every gas station becomes worthless. Every oil company becomes a museum piece. Every government built on petroleum becomes as relevant as the horse and buggy lobby. Eva studied the projections, her mind racing through implications that stretched far beyond profit margins. The economic disruption would be massive. Millions of jobs, entire industries, would evolve or die, just like they always have. Darius's voice carried the conviction of someone who'd thought through every angle. But the planet would survive. The air would clear. The oceans would heal. Children would grow up in a world where the sky isn't trying to kill them. Eva felt something crack open in her chest, a feeling she didn't recognize at first. It took her a moment to realize it was awe. Not at the wealth this engine could generate, but at the sheer audacious hope it represented. Why are you showing me this? Darius turned off the monitors, plunging them back into gentle shadows. Because tomorrow, your father's board is going to vote on whether to declare bankruptcy. Adrian's sabotage worked better than he planned, The recall lawsuits are piling up, insurance companies are fleeing, and stock prices are in free fall. The words hit Eva like ice water. Bankruptcy? But we can fight the lawsuits, rebuild the brand. With what money? Adrian made sure to time his sabotage perfectly. Your father's been leveraging everything to fund the hypercar line. When that fails, everything falls. Eva slumped against a workbench, the weight of her family's destruction settling on her shoulders like lead. So you win. You get your revenge, and we lose everything. Do we? Something in his tone made her look up. Darius was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Part challenge, part invitation, part something that made her heart skip dangerously. There's another option, he said quietly. A merger. What kind of merger? The real kind. He stepped closer, and Eva caught that scent again. Motor oil and possibility, and something deeper that made her skin feel electric. Your father's manufacturing infrastructure. My engine technology. Your business acumen. My engineering genius. Eva's breath caught. You want to save Kingsley Motors? I want to transform it into something worthy of James Washington's dreams. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I want you to help me do it. The workshop fell silent except for the distant sounds of traffic and Tola humming in the office. Eva stared at this man who'd turned her world upside down, who'd shown her depths of herself she'd never known existed. The wedding, she said slowly. It was never about humiliating me, was it? It was about giving you a choice. Darius moved closer still, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You made that contract in public, with the whole world watching. But a contract isn't a cage, Eva. It's a promise. And promises can be kept willingly or they can be broken. The choice is yours. Eva felt her pulse hammering in her throat. What if I choose to keep it? What if I choose you? Then we rebuild your father's empire into something better. We honor James Washington's memory by changing the world he dreamed of saving. And we find out if two people from different worlds can create something neither could build alone. He reached up, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. But I need to know it's your choice, Eva. Not your father's. Not society's. Not even mine. Yours. Eva closed her eyes, feeling the touch of his hand like electricity racing through her veins. When she opened them again, she saw something in his expression that made her heart stutter to a stop. Love. Not the calculated affection Adrian had shown her, not the conditional approval of her father. Real love, messy and dangerous and absolutely terrifying in its honesty. Darius, she whispered. I know, he said softly. I know this is crazy. I know we barely know each other. I know your world and mine aren't supposed to mix. But Eva. His thumb traced along her jawline. What if they were meant to? Before she could think, before she could doubt, before she could remember all the reasons this was impossible, Eva rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was nothing like kissing Adrian. No calculation, no performance, no awareness of who might be watching. This was raw and honest and so intense it made her knees buckle. When they finally broke apart, Eva realized she was crying. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry for what I said, for how I treated you, for... Sure. Darius gathered her against his chest, his voice rumbling through his ribcage. We're done looking backward, remember? Time to build something new. Eva buried her face against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of motor oil and dreams and the faint cologne that made her feel safe for the first time in days. So, she said when she could speak again, how do we save the world? Darius laughed, a sound like pure joy. First, we save your father's company. Then we revolutionize the automotive industry. Then we change the planet. That's all. Eva pulled back to look at him, surprised to find herself smiling through her tears. Well, Darius said, his eyes dancing with mischief, we might want to plan a wedding somewhere in there too. Eva thought she was choosing between her old life and her new one. But what she's really choosing is between the person she was and the person she's becoming. And that person. She's about to change everything. The Kingsley Motors emergency board meeting felt like a funeral where the corpse kept twitching. Eva sat between her father and their lead attorney, watching 12 of the most powerful people in the automotive industry pick apart her family's legacy like vultures at roadkill. The recall lawsuits alone will bankrupt us, CFO Margaret Chen announced, her voice clinically detached. 17 separate class actions, with more filing daily. Insurance carriers have dropped us. Our credit lines are frozen. Eva's phone buzzed under the table. A text from Darius. Remember what we discussed. Trust the plan. But looking around the mahogany-paneled boardroom, trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. These people had watched her grow up, had smiled at Christmas parties and charity galas. Now they stared at her like she was a liability to be liquidated. Motion to vote, said board member Harrison Kyle, Adrian's former mentor. All in favor of filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection? Wait. Eva stood, her voice cutting through the corporate death rattle. There's another option. Her father's hand found her arm, squeezing a warning. They'd agreed she wouldn't mention Darius's proposal until they knew more about his technical capabilities, his funding, his real intentions. But watching her father's life's work get dissected like a lab specimen, Eva made a choice that would have terrified her a week ago. We have an offer for a technological partnership that could revolutionize our entire production line. The room went silent except for the whisper of expensive suits shifting in leather chairs. Partnership with whom? Margaret asked. Eva lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of boardroom confidence her father had ever taught her. Darius Cole, the mechanic from the viral video. The silence shattered into chaos. Absolutely not. Harrison Kyle's voice boomed over the others. This company will not be held hostage by some opportunist looking to capitalize on a publicity stunt. He has proprietary engine technology that could. He's a garage mechanic with a community college education, another board member interrupted. What could he possibly offer that our R&D department hasn't already explored? Eva felt heat rising in her chest, not embarrassment now, but fury. He has a mechanical engineering degree from MIT, graduated summa cum laude, and designed the prototype engine that's been the foundation of our hypercar line for the past 5 years. That stopped the chatter cold. Victor stood slowly, his face carefully neutral. Eva, perhaps we should discuss this in private. No. Eva turned to face the board directly. You want to liquidate this company because you think we're out of options. But we're not. We have the chance to partner with someone who understands our technology better than anyone in this room, including me. Based on what evidence? Margaret's voice carried that particular tone of corporate condescension Eva had heard her entire life. Based on this. Eva pulled out her laptop, connecting it to the room's presentation system. The Phoenix Drive engine filled the screen in all its impossible glory, every component rendered in stunning detail. The room fell silent again. But this time the quality of silence was different. Hungry. Predatory. Where did you get this? Harrison leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the screen's blue glow. Darius Cole designed it, built it, perfected it over 15 years. Eva clicked through the performance specifications, watching board members' expressions shift from skepticism to barely contained greed. 0 emissions, unlimited range, acceleration that would make our current hypercar look like a golf cart. This is impossible, someone whispered. No, Victor said quietly, studying the screen with the intensity of someone seeing his own resurrection. This is genius. Eva felt a flutter of hope until Margaret stood up, her expression carved from ice. Even if this technology exists, and I'm not saying it does, what makes you think Mr. Cole would be willing to share it with us? After the way this company has treated him. Because, Eva said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, he's not interested in revenge. He's interested in changing the world. Harrison Kyle laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Nobody gives away technology worth billions out of altruism. What's his real angle? Before Eva could answer, the boardroom doors burst open. Federal agents flooded in, led by the same woman who'd arrested Adrian. Behind them walked a figure that made Eva's blood turn to ice water. Adrian Voss, still in his expensive suit, but now wearing an electronic ankle monitor and a smile that promised wholesale destruction. "Sorry to interrupt," Agent Martinez announced. "But Mr. Voss has some information that's relevant to this board's decision." Adrian moved to the head of the table like he'd never left, his presence filling the room with toxic charisma. "Hello, everyone. Miss me? What the hell is this?" Victor demanded. "He's supposed to be in federal custody." "Cooperation agreement," Adrian said smoothly. "Amazing how helpful the federal government can be when you offer them information about corporate fraud and conspiracy." He pulled out his own tablet, connecting it to the presentation system. The Phoenix drive disappeared, replaced by security footage that made Eva's heart stop. It was Darius, but not the composed man she'd fallen for. This was Darius from 6 months ago, meeting with shadowy figures in parking garages, accepting briefcases full of cash, his face twisted with an expression Eva had never seen. "Meet the real Darius Cole," Adrian announced. "Industrial spy, corporate saboteur, and your daughter's latest mistake." The footage continued, Darius photographing confidential documents, copying computer files, meeting with what appeared to be foreign agents. The timestamps showed meetings spanning months, always at night, always in secret. Eva felt the world tilt sideways. "That's not. He wouldn't." "Wouldn't he?" Adrian's voice carried mock sympathy. "Eva, sweetheart, you always were too trusting. Did you really think some garage mechanic could develop technology like that on his own? The Phoenix drive isn't his invention. It's stolen Chinese military technology, repackaged and sold to the highest bidder." The screen changed again, showing bank records with Darius's name attached to transactions from overseas accounts. Millions of dollars, flowing in complex patterns that suggested money laundering on an international scale. "Mr. Cole has been playing a very long game," Agent Martinez explained. "Using his relationship with your family to gain access to proprietary technology, then selling it to foreign competitors. The viral video, the public humiliation, even the romance, all of it calculated to get close to your company's secrets." Eva stared at the evidence, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. The man who'd held her, kissed her, promised to change the world with her. Was he really just another predator in disguise? "No," she whispered. "No, this is wrong. Darius isn't." "Darius isn't here to defend himself," Harrison Kyle pointed out. "Interesting timing, don't you think?" Eva grabbed her phone, dialing Darius's number with shaking fingers. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. "I'm sorry, Eva," Adrian said, and for a moment he almost sounded sincere. "I know this hurts. But you needed to know who you were really dealing with before you handed over your family's company to a foreign operative." The boardroom erupted into chaos again. Accusations, demands for explanations, calls for immediate votes. Eva sat in the center of it all, feeling like she was drowning in a sea of betrayal. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "If you want the truth, come alone. Pier 47, Warehouse 12. You have 1 hour before I disappear forever. D." Eva stared at the message, her heart hammering against her ribs. Around her, the board was already moving toward a bankruptcy vote. Her father was shouting at Agent Martinez, and Adrian was watching her with those cold, calculating eyes. 1 hour to learn if the man she'd fallen for was her salvation or her destruction. 1 hour to decide if love was worth risking everything for, or if she'd been played by a master manipulator who made Adrian look like an amateur. Eva looked at the Phoenix drive engine still glowing on her laptop screen. Beautiful, impossible, and now maybe nothing more than an elaborate lie. Her phone buzzed again. "Trust your heart, not their evidence. Please. D." Eva has to choose. Trust the evidence of her eyes, or trust the man who might be the greatest con artist she's ever met. And with everything her family has left hanging in the balance, the wrong choice could destroy them all. Pier 47 was a graveyard of industrial dreams, where rusted shipping containers stood like tombstones under a bleeding sunset. Eva's Maserati felt like a target as she navigated between abandoned warehouses, her heart hammering against her ribs. Warehouse 12 sat at the end of the pier, its massive doors hanging open like a mouth waiting to swallow her whole. She almost turned around 17 times. But the memory of Darius's hands on her face, the way he'd looked at her when he'd shown her the Phoenix Drive, the sound of his voice when he'd whispered her name, that kept her foot on the accelerator. Either she was about to confront the man she loved, or walk into a trap set by the most dangerous predator she'd ever met. The warehouse was dark except for a single spotlight illuminating the center of the vast space. And there, working on an engine with the same reverent precision she'd witnessed a dozen times, was Darius Cole. He looked up as her footsteps echoed across the concrete, his face shadowed and unreadable. "You came. I had to know." Eva stopped just outside the circle of light, her hand on the pepper spray in her purse. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me Adrian's lying." Darius straightened, wiping his hands on that familiar rag. "Which part?" "All of it. The spy footage, the money, the stolen technology. Tell me it's all fake." "I can't." The words hit Eva like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her world crashing down around her ears. "Because it's not fake," she whispered. "Because it's complicated." Darius stepped into the light, and Eva saw something in his face that made her pause. Not guilt. Not calculation. Something that looked almost like relief? "Then explain it," she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Explain how the man who showed me the Phoenix Drive, who kissed me like I was his whole world, is actually a corporate spy selling secrets to foreign governments." Darius pulled out his phone, scrolling through something before holding it out to her. "Look at the timestamps on Adrian's footage." Eva took the phone reluctantly, studying the security camera timestamps. March 15th, April 3rd, May 22nd. What am I supposed to see? "Now look at this." He showed her another screen, FBI case files with dates that made her blood run cold. The meetings Adrian had shown weren't with foreign spies. They were with federal agents. "I've been working undercover for the FBI for 8 months, Darius said quietly. "Ever since they approached me about Adrian's insider trading scheme." Eva stared at the case files, her mind reeling. You're FBI? Contract consultant. They needed someone with automotive expertise who could get close to Kingsley Motors without raising suspicion. Darius moved closer, his voice gentle. The garage mechanic thing was perfect cover. Nobody suspects the help of having advanced degrees or federal connections. But the money transfers, the foreign accounts. Part of the sting operation. We had to make it look real, make Adrian think he had leverage over me if he ever got suspicious. Darius reached for her hands, but Eva stepped back. "So everything was fake. The attraction, the romance, the way you looked at me. All of it was just part of your cover." "No." The word came out like a gunshot. "God, no, Eva. That was real. More real than anything I've ever felt." Darius ran his hands through his hair, his composed facade finally cracking. "You want the truth? The whole truth? Fine. Yes, I approached you as part of an FBI operation. Yes, I was supposed to get close to your family to gather evidence on Adrian's activities. But the moment I actually met you, the moment I saw past that spoiled princess act to the brilliant, complex woman underneath, everything changed." Eva felt tears threatening, but she refused to let them fall. "How do I know what's real and what's part of your assignment?" "Because I just destroyed my own case to save you." Darius pulled out another phone, this one clearly a burner, and showed her a text thread with Agent Martinez. Eva's blood turned to ice as she read the messages. "Martinez. Bring her in. We have enough evidence to prosecute her as an accessory." "Darius. She's innocent. She didn't know about Adrian's plans." "Martinez. Doesn't matter. Her engagement to Voss makes her a co-conspirator in the eyes of a jury. Bring her in or lose your immunity deal." "Darius. Find another way." "Martinez. This is your last chance, Cole. Choose your side." The final message was time-stamped 20 minutes ago. "I'm out. Consider my cooperation withdrawn. Don't contact me again." Eva looked up at Darius, understanding flooding through her like ice water. "You chose me over your federal immunity? I chose us over everything else." His voice was raw with emotion. Martinez wanted to arrest you as Adrian's accomplice. I told her to go to hell. But that means... Eva's mind raced through the implications. That means you're exposed. Adrian knows you're FBI now. Your cover is blown. Completely. Darius smiled grimly. Which means I have about 6 hours before Adrian's associates decide I'm a liability that needs to be eliminated. The warehouse suddenly felt very large and very exposed. Eva looked around at the shadows, realizing how isolated they were, how perfect this location would be for making someone disappear. That's why you wanted me to come alone, she said. Not to seduce me or kidnap me. To warn me. To give you a choice. Darius moved to the engine he'd been working on, and Eva realized it wasn't just any engine. It was another Phoenix Drive prototype, smaller and more refined than the one she'd seen at the garage. This is the real one, he said. Not stolen Chinese technology, not some elaborate fake. This is 15 years of my life, my dreams, my promise to James Washington that his death wouldn't be for nothing. Eva approached the engine, drawn by its impossible beauty even in the midst of her crumbling world. Why show me this now? Because in about 5 hours, I'm going to be running for my life. And I needed you to know that everything I told you about changing the world, about building something better, that was real. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I needed you to know that what I feel for you is the most real thing I've ever experienced. Eva reached out, her fingers finding the warm metal of the engine, feeling its potential humming beneath her touch. The board voted for bankruptcy 20 minutes ago. My father's company is finished. Not necessarily. Darius pulled out a tablet, showing her financial projections that made her eyes widen. The Phoenix Drive isn't just revolutionary technology. It's worth more than Kingsley Motors' entire current market cap. With the right backing, the right presentation to investors. We could save the company. Eva felt hope blooming in her chest like a dangerous flower. We could actually do this. We could change everything. Darius stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. But Eva, you need to understand, if we do this, there's no going back. Adrian will come after us with everything he has. The FBI will consider me a rogue agent. Your father's board will fight us every step of the way. Eva looked at the Phoenix Drive, then at the man who'd risked everything to show her the truth. The man who'd chosen her over his own safety, her future over his immunity. What if I'm not strong enough? She whispered. What if I let you down the way I let down everyone else? Darius cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize had fallen. Eva Kingsley, you walked into this warehouse alone, knowing I might be a dangerous criminal, because you needed to hear the truth. You stood up to your own board to defend a man they thought was beneath you. You're already stronger than you know. And if we fail, then we fail together. He leaned his forehead against hers, his voice barely a whisper. But if we succeed, we'll build the future James Washington dreamed of. Clean air, sustainable technology, a world where innovation serves humanity instead of just profit. Eva closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the choice before her. Safety lay in walking away, letting Darius disappear into whatever witness protection program would have him, returning to the ruins of her father's company and somehow rebuilding from the ashes. But courage, real courage, lay in stepping into the unknown with a man who'd shown her who she could become. Okay, she whispered. Let's change the world. When she opened her eyes, Darius was smiling. Not the controlled expression she'd seen before, but something wild and fierce and absolutely beautiful. First, he said, we need to get out of here alive. I have a plan, but you're not going to like it. Eva laughed despite everything, feeling strength she'd never known she possessed flooding through her veins. Try me. Eva thought choosing love meant choosing safety. Instead, she's chosen the most dangerous path possible. But sometimes the most dangerous path is the only one that leads to something worth having. The plan was insane. But as Eva crouched behind a shipping container at 3 a.m., watching Adrian's black SUVs circle the warehouse like sharks, she realized insane might be their only chance at survival. Remember, Darius's voice crackled through her earpiece, when I give the signal, You run for the boat. Don't look back, don't hesitate, don't try to be a hero. What about you? I'll be right behind you. Promise. Eva gripped the laptop containing all the Phoenix drive specifications, her other hand clutching the encrypted USB drive that held enough evidence to bring down Adrian's entire network. Everything they needed to save her father's company and expose the conspiracy that had destroyed James Washington. If they lived long enough to use it. Adrian's voice echoed across the pier, amplified by a megaphone. Darius! I know you're in there. And I know Eva's with you. This doesn't have to end badly for anyone. Through the shadows, Eva could see him standing beside the lead SUV, still wearing that perfect suit, still radiating the confidence that had once made her feel safe. Now it made her skin crawl. Come out, Adrian continued, and we can discuss this like civilized people. The FBI can't protect you anymore, and Eva's daddy can't buy her way out of federal prison. You need what I'm offering. Darius's voice came through the earpiece. Moving to position 2. 30 seconds. Eva's heart hammered as she watched him slip between the containers, his movements silent as smoke. Over the past 6 hours, he'd revealed skills that had nothing to do with mechanical engineering. Lockpicking, surveillance detection, combat tactics that spoke of training far beyond what any FBI consultant should possess. Who are you really? She'd asked as they'd prepared for this final confrontation. Someone who learned early that the world doesn't protect people like James Washington, he'd replied. So I decided to become someone who could. Now, watching him navigate the pier like a ghost, Eva understood. Darius Cole wasn't just a mechanic or an FBI consultant. He was something far more dangerous, a man with nothing left to lose who'd finally found something worth fighting for. 10 seconds, his voice whispered. Eva tensed, ready to run for the speedboat they'd hidden at the far end of the pier. The plan was simple. Create a distraction, grab the evidence, and disappear into the night before Adrian's people could react. Simple plans, Eva had learned, never survived contact with reality. The warehouse erupted in flames. Not the controlled explosion Darius had planned, but a massive fireball that lit up the night sky like a small sun. Eva threw herself behind the container as debris rained down around her, the laptop clutched against her chest. Darius! She screamed into her earpiece. Static. Through the roar of flames and shouting voices, she heard Adrian laughing. Did you really think I didn't know about your little escape route? I've been planning this for months, sweetheart. Every move you've made, every safe house you've used, every ally you've trusted, I've been 3 steps ahead. Eva's blood turned to ice. If Adrian had known about their plans. She looked toward the pier where their speedboat was supposed to be waiting. 3 more SUVs were pulling up, men in tactical gear pouring out like army ants. They were trapped. Eva! Darius's voice came from somewhere in the maze of burning containers. Change of plans. We go loud. Before she could ask what he meant, the night exploded into chaos. Darius emerged from the smoke like an avenging angel, but he wasn't alone. Behind him came a dozen figures in FBI windbreakers, moving with military precision as they surrounded Adrian's forces. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Gunfire erupted across the pier. Eva pressed herself against the container, her ears ringing, as muzzle flashes strobed through the darkness like deadly lightning. Agent Martinez sends her regards. Darius's voice crackled through her earpiece. Turns out she was more interested in bringing down Adrian's entire network than prosecuting his girlfriend. Eva laughed despite the bullets flying overhead. Girlfriend. We'll discuss titles later. Right now, move. Eva sprinted toward the boat, weaving between containers as the FBI and Adrian's mercenaries turned the pier into a war zone. Behind her, she could hear Adrian screaming orders, his perfect composure finally cracking under pressure. She made it halfway before a figure stepped out of the shadows directly in front of her. Harrison Kyle, her father's oldest board member, holding a gun with the casual competence of someone who'd done this before. Hello, Eva. Going somewhere. Harrison. Eva stopped so suddenly she nearly fell. What are you doing here? Protecting my investment. His smile was cold as winter. Did you really think Adrian was running this operation alone? Someone had to coordinate with the overseas buyers, manage the money laundering, ensure the technology transfers went smoothly. Eva felt her world tilt sideways again. You're part of this. You've been part of it all along. I've been cleaning up your father's messes for 20 years, Harrison said. Stolen technology, bribed inspectors, covered up recalls that should have bankrupted us a decade ago. Adrian just offered a more permanent solution. The Phoenix Drive will make whoever controls it the richest man in history, and that someone won't be a foster kid from the wrong side of town. Harrison raised the gun, his finger tightening on the trigger. I'm sorry, Eva. I always liked you. The gunshot echoed across the water. Harrison Kyle crumpled to the ground, blood spreading across the concrete. Behind him stood Tola Washington, holding a smoking .45 with the steady hands of someone who'd once been a Marine. That's for my boy James, she said quietly. And for my grandson Darius. And for you, child, because nobody deserves to die for loving the wrong person. Eva stared at the older woman, understanding flooding through her. Darius is your grandson. Foster grandson, biological grandson of the heart, Tola corrected. When his parents died, James and I raised him together. When James died, I made sure that boy had everything he needed to honor his grandfather's memory. Including FBI training? Tola's smile was fierce as a mother wolf's. Including whatever it took to make sure the people who killed James Washington got exactly what they deserved. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air as federal agents swarmed the pier. Adrian's voice rose above the chaos, screaming accusations and threats that nobody was listening to anymore. Eva found Darius at the boat, his face streaked with soot but his eyes bright with triumph. Package delivered, he said, holding up a tablet showing bank transfers, communications records, and video evidence that would put Adrian and his network away for life. It's over, Eva asked, hardly daring to believe it. It's over. Darius pulled her into his arms, and Eva felt 15 years of pain and planning finally release its grip on the man she loved. Adrian's finished. Harrison's finished. The technology is ours to do with as we see fit. Eva looked back at the burning warehouse, at the federal agents leading Adrian away in handcuffs, at Tola Washington calmly giving her statement like she hadn't just saved Eva's life. What happens now? Darius smiled, and Eva saw the future in his eyes. Bright and clean and full of possibility. Now we build the company James Washington dreamed of. We make the Phoenix Drive available to every automaker who wants to change the world instead of just profit from it. We show your father's board what real leadership looks like. And us? Eva asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. What happens to us? That, Darius said, leaning down to kiss her with a passion that tasted like freedom and forever, depends on whether you still want to marry a mechanic. Eva laughed against his lips, feeling joy bubble up from somewhere deep in her chest. Only if he promises to keep fixing things that are broken. Starting with the world? Starting with me. As dawn broke over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of gold and hope, Eva Kingsley and Darius Cole stood together on the pier where their old lives had ended and their new one was about to begin. The Phoenix Drive hummed quietly in its protective case, ready to change everything. But first, they had a wedding to plan. Sometimes the ending is really just the beginning. And sometimes the person who breaks your world is the same person who shows you how to rebuild it into something beautiful. 6 months later, the Kingsley Cole Innovation Center rose from the ashes of what had once been Warehouse 12 like a monument to impossible dreams made real. Eva stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new office, watching the first Phoenix Drive vehicles roll off the production line below. Each car that emerged was a masterpiece of sustainable engineering, powered by technology that would make oil companies obsolete and give the planet a fighting chance. Admiring your kingdom? Eva turned to find Darius in the doorway, his once simple black uniform replaced by a perfectly tailored suit that somehow still managed to look like he'd rather be elbow-deep in an engine bay. Some things, Eva had learned, never changed. Thank God. Our kingdom, she corrected, moving into his arms with the easy intimacy of two people who'd been tested by fire and emerged stronger. I still can't believe it's real. Believe it. Darius gestured toward the production floor, where workers assembled engines that hummed with the quiet efficiency of the future. 3 more automakers signed licensing agreements this week. Tesla's stock dropped 15% yesterday. And your father is finally smiling again, Eva finished. For the first time since Mom died, he looks like he remembers why he fell in love with cars in the first place. Victor Kingsley had surprised everyone, including himself, by embracing the partnership with Darius completely. The man who'd built an empire on stolen dreams had found redemption in helping create something genuinely revolutionary. He'd insisted on establishing the James Washington Memorial Scholarship for underprivileged engineering students, and had personally apologized to every family affected by the recalled vehicles. "Speaking of your father," Darius said, checking his watch, "he'll be here in an hour for the ceremony, along with half the automotive press corps and 3 senators who suddenly care deeply about clean energy." Eva laughed, smoothing imaginary wrinkles from her wedding dress, a stunning creation of silk and sustainable fabrics that managed to be both elegant and practical. Very much like the woman wearing it, according to the Vogue article that had dubbed her the princess who saved Detroit. "Nervous?" Darius asked, reading her expression with the accuracy that came from really knowing someone. "Terrified," Eva admitted. "Not about marrying you, that's the easiest decision I've ever made. But about everything else. The company, the responsibility, the fact that millions of people are watching to see if we can actually deliver on our promises." Darius cupped her face in his hands, those same hands that had fixed a sabotaged engine with cocktail straws and changed both their lives forever. "Eva Kingsley Cole, you've already delivered. Look around you." Eva followed his gaze to the production floor, where Tola Washington was giving a tour to a group of visiting investors, her silver hair catching the light as she explained the Phoenix Drive's revolutionary design. The woman who'd raised both Darius and his foster grandfather had become the company's chief cultural officer, ensuring that profit never took precedence over people. In the research and development wing, teams of engineers worked on the next generation of sustainable technology. Solar panels that were actually beautiful, wind turbines that looked like art installations, battery systems that could power entire cities without harming the environment. "Remember when you asked me what happens if we fail?" Darius said softly. "Look at what we've built. We've already succeeded beyond James Washington's wildest dreams." Eva felt tears threatening her carefully applied makeup. He would have been proud. He would have been amazed. A black foster kid and a billionaire's daughter, working together to save the world? That's the kind of story he used to tell me when I was little, the kind I thought only existed in fairy tales. A knock at the office door interrupted them. Agent Martinez stood in the entrance, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes but smiling with genuine warmth. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I thought you'd want to know. Adrian's plea hearing was this morning. 25 to life. No possibility of parole. The judge said it was one of the most comprehensive cases of corporate espionage and conspiracy she'd ever seen." Eva felt a complex mix of emotions at the news. Adrian had tried to destroy everything she cared about, but he'd also been a part of her life for 3 years. The relief was overwhelming, but tinged with sadness for the man she'd thought he was. "What about the others?" Darius asked. Harrison Kyle's cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence. The overseas buyers are facing extradition. Your testimony was instrumental in breaking the whole network apart. Martinez hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how everything went down. The Bureau should have trusted your judgment about Eva from the beginning." "Water under the bridge," Darius said easily. "You did what you thought was right to protect national interests. And you did what was right to protect the woman you love." Martinez smiled. "Sometimes individual conscience trumps institutional policy. I'm learning to appreciate that distinction." After Martinez left, Eva and Darius stood together in comfortable silence, watching their dream take physical form in the factory below. Workers who might have been unemployed when Kingsley Motors faced bankruptcy now had jobs building the future. Investors who'd written off the automotive industry as a dying business were scrambling to get aboard the sustainable technology revolution. 5 minutes, Tola's voice came through the intercom. "The minister's ready, the press is positioned, and your father's practicing his proud papa speech." Eva took a deep breath, then another. How do I look? Darius stepped back, studying her with the intensity he usually reserved for engine diagnostics. The dress hugged her curves perfectly, but it was the confidence in her posture, the determination in her green eyes, the way she held herself like someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of, that took his breath away. Like the woman who's going to change the world, he said finally. Like the partner I've been waiting my whole life to find. Like the love I never dared to hope I deserved. Eva felt her heart overflow with emotions too big for words. This man had seen her at her worst, spoiled, cruel, completely oblivious to her own privilege, and had somehow helped her discover the person she was capable of becoming. Ready? She asked, taking his arm. I've been ready since the moment you made me that ridiculous promise at your father's birthday party. They walked together toward the ceremony space that had been set up in the main assembly hall, surrounded by the gentle hum of Phoenix drive engines and the future they were building together. 300 guests rose to their feet as Eva and Darius entered. Board members and federal agents, former adversaries and new allies, workers from the factory floor and senators from Washington, all united in witness to something that shouldn't have been possible but absolutely was. Victor Kingsley waited at the altar with tears in his eyes, ready to give away his daughter to the man who'd saved not just their company, but their souls. As the minister began the ceremony, Eva looked out at the faces surrounding them. Tola beaming with pride, Agent Martinez dabbing at her eyes, even Margaret Chen from the board looking genuinely moved, and realized that love really could triumph over everything else. Not the fairy tale kind of love that ignored reality, but the real kind that faced problems head-on and chose to build something better from the wreckage of what came before. Do you, Eva Kingsley, take Darius Cole to be your husband, your partner in all things, your companion in changing the world? I do, Eva said, her voice carrying across the assembly hall with the confidence of someone who'd finally found her place in the universe. Forever and always, I do. And do you, Darius Cole, take Eva Kingsley to be your wife, your equal partner in love and life and the pursuit of a better tomorrow? Darius looked into Eva's eyes and saw their entire future reflected there. Late nights in the lab, board meetings where they'd fight for their principles, quiet moments when the weight of changing the world felt too heavy and they'd hold each other until they found the strength to continue. I do, he said, his voice rough with emotion. With everything I am, everything I've been, and everything I'll become, I do. When they kissed, the assembly hall erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever. But Eva barely heard it, lost in the taste of Darius's lips and the promise of all the tomorrows they'd build together. Outside, the first Phoenix Drive delivery trucks were rolling out to dealerships across the country, carrying technology that would revolutionize transportation forever. Inside, two people who'd started as enemies had become something neither could have achieved alone. Partners in every sense of the word, ready to take on the world together. As they broke apart, Darius whispered against Eva's ear, So, Mrs. Kingsley Cole, what do we do for our next trick? Eva laughed, feeling joy bubble up from somewhere infinite and pure. Solar panels that work in cloudy weather. Wind turbines that don't kill birds. Maybe a battery system that can power the entire East Coast. Ambitious, Darius grinned. I like it. Good, Eva said, taking his hand as they turned to face their future together, because I'm just getting started. Sometimes the best revenge is living so well that your enemies become irrelevant. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the worst first meetings. And sometimes, just sometimes, two people can actually change the world. One engine, one innovation, one impossible dream at a time.